Hi players, bonjour from Paris, my name is Asaf Hirsch and welcome to my channel Easy Board Games. Today I'm going to show how to play Lords of Ragnarok by Adam Kvapinski, published by Awaken Realms. As always, if you learned something new or if you saw something that you like, please consider subscribing to my channel. It's a pretty good way to show me that you like the video. Ready to take control over the land, build some temples and kick some monsters' ass? Let's go to setup. Alright guys, so after we've placed the board at the center of the table, and obviously this is going to be a 3-player game, so we're going to use this side of the board on the horizontal part. Then we're going to place all the different realm tokens in their different sections, and we're going to put the action wheel at the center of the table. Try to, of course, align it with these lines of the different borders of the regions. Then we're going to take the temple card and choose one of its sides. They recommend that in the first game we'll use the side with the 2 draft keywords on it. Then we'll take the different temples and we'll put each one of them on one of these circles. Then we'll take all the forge tokens and we're going to randomly assign them to the regions with the forge symbols. On each of these forge, we're going to take the corresponding rune token and we're going to place it on it. So over here, for example, we're going to take this rune over here and we're going to place it on it. The rest of the rune tokens we can put aside the board as a supply. Then we're going to take the 3 monument bases and we're going to place them on their corresponding place on the board. So over here, for example, this is Odin's place and we're going to put the corresponding base on it. The rest of the monument pieces we're just going to put next to the board. Then we're going to take the 6 monster trays that we can see over here, and each couple of cards with the same sign, we're sort of going to shuffle it and place it randomly one on top of the other. After we did that, we can turn over all the cards. Now, next to or on each one of the trays, we're going to put 2 things, the corresponding miniature, and also we're going to take the different artifacts of the monsters, and we're going to assign each card to its corresponding monster. As you can see, we already have Loki's tray, this is the boss, right next to him, but a little bit separated. Then we're going to shuffle the different decks that we have. So we have the blessing cards, we have the monster attack, the combat cards, and the events. Then we're going to take the 5 Ragnarok requisite cards and we're going to put them on top of the board. After that, each player is going to take the 3 help cards in the different colors, a board in the chosen color, and all the different components in that player's color. That means the 6 army miniatures, the Drakkar miniature, the different control tokens, and then the 3 rings, 2 big and 1 smaller. Then we'll need to place Loki. So we're just going to draw an event card and we're going to look at the number that we have on top. Here we can see that we have number 17. So we're just going to track the region that is number 17 and we're going to put Loki in that region. Now we'll need to place some monsters on the board. So we're going to draw as many event cards as players that we have. Again, this is going to be a 3-player game, so we're going to draw 3 event cards. Then we're going to look at the first card and we're going to look at the sign that we have under the word place. Here we can see that we have the rune with this N-shaped symbol. So we're just going to go over here to these 2 monsters and we're going to pick the top one. This monster we're going to place in the same region that correspond to the number that we have on top. The second card is going to have the same sign but with number 2 on it. So we're going to take the troll and put it on region number 2. And then if, for example, the third card that I'm drawing has the same sign but we already don't have monsters with this sign, we simply don't do anything. This is not going to be our case because this is the sign that I drew to put in region number 1. So we're just going to take the first monster, this is Fafnir, and we're going to put it in the first region right over here. And just like we did with Loki, these specific cards we can put in the discard pile. Now we'll go to the hero draft part and we will need to randomly choose which player will start this procedure. So let's say that the green player is going to start. He will need to randomly draw 2 of these hero tiles. So let's say that he randomly chose Snorri and Beowulf. And also he will need to randomly draw 2 of the origin cards that we can see over here. And on top of that, he will receive another origin card that says become the first player. Now he'll need to choose one of these heroes and one of these origin cards. If he did not choose the card that says become the first player, this card will go to the player sitting on his left. So now the green player actually chose not to have this card, he's going to pass it to the red player. He chose to draw one combat card. So he's going to put it right over here and will already take the bonus that is corresponding to this card. In this case is to draw one combat card from the deck and put it in his possession. The hero that he chose is Beowulf, so he's going to take this hero tile and will put it while covering the origin card again on his playmat. And the other hero tile and the origin card we will need to shuffle again. Then this player is going to take the miniature corresponding to the hero that he chose and he's going to attach the smaller ring to the base of this hero. Then we'll take the 3 attribute tokens, the wisdom, the might and the authority, and we're going to put each of them in the first slot. Pay attention that you put it on the right side because on the other side, and that is the injured side, we'll talk about it a little bit later. This means that the value of each attribute right now is 2. Now this player is going to draw one combat card, so we already know that he has one from the origin card, he's going to have a second one. Then this player will take his Drakkar miniature and will put it on one of the seas that we can see. So this is one of the first concepts of the game. As you can see, we have an ocean that is all around the map itself, and each ocean section is divided by these blue lines. So for example, this ocean that you can see over here starts from this blue line and continues all the way to the next blue line. The green player chose to put his Drakkar right over here. Then this player will take his hero and 2 army miniatures with a value of 1 and will put it in a region that is adjacent to the ocean area with their Drakkar. In our case, it's going to be this region, this one, or this one. As you can see, we have some numbers on the regions, and that is the population strength of that specific region. At this time, if a player chose to put his units in a region that has number 2, that means that the population strength is 2, he's going to immediately place one of his control tokens on that number. Then we're going to continue clockwise to the next player and he's going to execute the same procedure. I just want to add that the next players will be able to put their Drakkar in the same sea as other players, but they will not be able to put their armies in the same regions like other players. So let's say that the red player has chosen the hero Lagertha, he's going to put his Drakkar in the same sea as the green player, and he's going to put his 2 armies and his hero in this region right over here. So he's going to immediately take one of his control tokens and going to cover the number 2. That indicates that right now he's controlling this region. The last player has chosen an origin card that says take 2 runes of your choice. So as you can see, he already took 2 runes and he's going to put it in his pool, right on his player mat. So first of all, as you already can see, this map is divided to different regions and also lands. A region is a territory that is numbered between 1 and 21. So for example, here we have region number 3, and we can see that the territory is divided from the other territories with these lines over here. A region has a specific number, a population strength like we saw before, a sign that shows to which land it belongs, and another sign to show what it has in it. In this specific case, we have a settlement. A land is a group of regions that has the same sign, and most likely you can see that it has pretty much the same color. So for example, these 3 regions create one land. The other 3 symbols that we have are this one to show that in this region we have a monument. We have this sign over here to show that we have a shrine. And we have this sign over here that we saw before to indicate that we have a forge. The second concept is controlling a region. So as you already saw, when we have a player that has the army strength equal or higher than the population strength in that specific region, that player took control over the region, and we're going to mark it by placing one of the control tokens on the number. This is going to happen only one time because after a specific player has taken control on a specific region, we don't care anymore about the population strength in that region, And actually it considered that the population strength is 0 when we don't have armies over here. So if a green army with a value of 1 will walk in here, he's going to take control over this region and is going to mark it by replacing the control token of the red player with the green control marker. Besides the lands, regions, and the seas that we already saw, we have another type of territory, and those are the different realms. A realm is a territory that nobody can walk into it, not a monster, not the boss, not the heroes, and not the different armies. The only thing that the different players will be able to do with these realms is to form alliances, but we'll talk about it soon enough. Another concept that we have is the movement. So let's see how the different units can move. First of all, we can move a hero into any adjacent space that we can see. Heroes are never going to participate, at least actively, in a combat. Of course, with some cards, we're going to have some passive abilities or something like that. But if, for example, I would like to move the green hero one adjacent space over here, it is completely legal. The same movement we can do with one of the armies, but of course, if we're going to move an army unit to a region that contains the armies of another player, we're going to trigger combat after we finished all the different movement, for example. The Drakkar, of course, as we saw, will be able to move only on the sea areas. Armies and heroes will be able to move with their Drakkar. So a Drakkar basically will be some sort of a bridge, let's say, between regions that are adjacent to the same sea space that the Drakkar is currently in. So for example, with one movement, let's say that the hero was over here, with one movement, the hero can move with the Drakkar to this region. If the blue player is going to move one of his armies, then he can take the army and basically move with the Drakkar all the way over here to this region, for example, because it's in the same sea where they have their Drakkar. Sometimes we will need to withdraw. And when a specific army needs to withdraw, it means that he needs to move from the region that he's situated right now to an adjacent region that is under that player's control. If an army needs to withdraw to an adjacent region and he doesn't have an adjacent region with their control marker, then this army is basically destroyed and the player will put it back in his pool. Just as a reminder, an army can move with a Drakkar if it needs to withdraw. A monster, of course, will move just to adjacent regions and cannot obviously use the Drakkars to move. Sometimes when a monster will move to a region with armies, it will trigger their stomp, but we'll see it a little bit later. In Lords of Ragnarok, players are going to take turns in executing different actions in a specific order. We're going to start with a prayer action, then hero action, rune action, maneuvers, and then the special actions. We're going to continue this game turn after turn until one of the 3 immediate victory conditions are met, or we came to a situation that we have the Ragnarok. The first immediate victory condition is the Great Jarl. And swear to God, I can give you a whole video of just me trying to pronounce this word. A player is going to be declared as the winner if he achieved control over 3 lands. The second immediate victory condition is called Great Gothy. In this case, a player is going to achieve victory if he controls 5 regions with a built temple. So we haven't talked about temples yet, but in general, these are some things that we can build in a region that we have a shrine. The third immediate victory condition is called Slayer, and a player will be declared as the winner immediately if they slayed Loki, the boss. But the thing is that we'll be able to start hunting Loki only if we have already slain 2 other monsters. The last way to win the game is called Ragnarok. Now, every time after we're going to build part of the monuments, we're going to look at the requisite cards that we have over here. And every time that we have something on the card that is already accomplished on the board, we're going to flip this card on the other side. If at some point we'll have at least 3 cards that are flipped on the other side, then Ragnarok will begin. And that means that each player will have one last turn to try and maybe fulfill one of the immediate winning conditions. And if by the last turn of the last player nobody has achieved an immediate victory, then the player who's controlling most of the regions around the special action will be declared as the winner. If we're going to have a tie, then the player who took their last turn earlier wins the game. Each player in his turn will follow this sequence of the actions. Now it's important to say that each one of these steps 1 to 4 can be skipped if the player does not want to execute one of them or if they can't. The only step that cannot be skipped is number 5, the special actions. In the first step, the prayer, a player will be able to take one of the priests that he has in his pool on his player mat and put it on the base of one of the 3 monuments that we have on the board. That priest will give a specific bonus to that player, and the priest will stay there until a monument will be built. The higher the monuments, that means the more pieces we have on each monument is higher, the greater the bonus that you will receive. We start the game without priests at all, but just for the example, let's say that the green player has 1 priest and he decides to send it to one of the monuments. So for example, if he decided to go to Odin's monument, as we can see over here, we're going to go to that specific god's card and see what is the bonus. As you can see, if we have only the base, what we will do is to push our authority 1 step upwards. If we would have had Odin's legs already on this monument, we would receive, as you can see, 1 in the authority and also increase the value of one of our armies by 1. With Thor, it's going to be the might and combat cards, and with Freya, it's going to be the wisdom with runes to our choice. In the second part of this step, we have something that is called rune forging, and that means that a hero, if he is situated in a region that has a rune, he will be able to pick it up. So as you can see over here, the hero of the green player is situated in a region that has an available rune. So he'll be able to just pick it up from the board and put it in his pool. This means one of these spaces. Now the number of runes that you can have in your pool is only limited by how much wisdom do you have. Since our starting wisdom is 2, we can only have 2 runes on our player mat. We can pick up another rune even if we meet our limit, but that means that we need to discard another rune that we already have. Moving to the second step, we have here 3 options and we need to choose one of them. Either to heal the hero, and that means that if we have 1 or more of our attributes that we took damage in, so right now you can see that in the might attribute we took an injury. With this specific action, we'll be able to heal ourselves. The second option is to move the hero by 2 regions. The third option that we have is to move the Drakkar by up to 2 seas. The next step is a rune action step, and that means that we can choose 1 rune action. Here we're going to have 3 options. If we're going to do a rune action that requires only 1 rune, that basically means that we need a specific kind of rune. If we're going to do a rune action that requires 2 runes, we'll need to use any 2 different kind of runes. And obviously, if we need to do a rune action that requires 3 runes, it has to be 1 of each type. So let's see what are the different rune actions. First of all, with 1 rune, we'll be able to take control over a neutral monster in a region with their hero. Now he's in the same region as a monster. In this specific case, it's with Huldra. Now, as you can see right over here on the monsters tray, we see that we have a specific kind of rune. And that means that if, as the player, you paid this kind of rune, you'll be able to take control if this monster is a neutral and does not belong to another player. And what a surprise, this is exactly the type of rune that we're having in our player mat right now, in our pool. So what we're going to do is to just pay this rune to the general supply, and then we're just going to take one of these rings in our collar. We're going to take the monster, we're going to attach to its base this ring, and now this monster is considered to be under the green player's control. Another option that we have with a single rune is to activate the boss ability in a region with their hero. So let's say, for example, that the hero is right over here, and if we look at Loki's tray, we can see that the rune required to activate it is the same rune as we saw for the other monster before. So when we're paying this to the general supply, we'll be able to place Loki in any region, but not activate the stomp, which we'll talk about when we'll see more about the monsters. The last single rune action that we can take is to form an alliance with a realm that is adjacent to a region where their hero is situated right now. In this case, we can see that the hero of the green player is adjacent to this realm, and we can see the specific rune that we will need to pay to the general supply in order to form an alliance with this realm. So let's say that the green player does have that specific rune in his possession. We're just going to pay it back to the general supply, and what we will do right now is to take one of the control markers and we're going to put it on that specific realm. If this is the first player that places their control marker on that realm, this player is going to draw a combat card. So the green player is taking a combat card, but what happens right now is that we have 3 combat cards, which actually exceeds the limit of the 2 might that we have right now. As a reminder, what is limiting the number of combat cards is your might. So right now we have a limit of 2, and that means that the green player will have to discard one of the combat cards. We will talk about these alliances with the realms when we will talk about the special actions. The first 2 rune action that we can do is to increase the value of one of our armies by 1. And that player does not have to be in a controlled region with a settlement. The second 2 rune action that we can do is to activate one monster controlled by that active player or a neutral monster. Again, we will talk about monsters a little bit further down. The third option is to draw one combat card that we already saw. And the fourth 2 rune action option that we have is to place our hero in any region. And when it says place the hero, it means just that we're going to take him from wherever that hero is and just place it wherever we want on the map. With 3 runes, we have 2 options. The first one is to draw 2 combat cards, and the second option is to increase one of the lowest attributes of that active hero by 1. So here, for example, we have 2 tributes, wisdom and might, that are on 2, that is the lowest. And that means that by paying 3 different runes, we can take one of them, this is to our choice, and increase it by 1. In this step, the active player will be able to activate one of his armies. Activate means to either move a chosen army to an adjacent region, but pay attention that if you decided to move into a region that already contains another player's armies, you will trigger a combat. The second option to activate an army is to increase that army value by 1, but only if the army is in a player's region with a settlement. So let's take the blue player right now for an example. If just for the example, he would have had another army over here with a value of 2, that means that already the army value that he has is 4, and it means that he controls now this region. Now, if the blue player will activate one of his armies over here, he will be able to increase the value of one of these armies by 1. If we have a situation that a player does not have armies at all on the map, he will be able to recruit one army. And that means that this player will take one army from their pool and put it on the board with the army value equal to their authority. When we want to place this army, we have 3 options. Either we're going to put it in a region that is adjacent to that player's Drakkar. So in the green player's situation, it's going to be over here or over here, and obviously it's not going to trigger a combat. Or it can be in a region that the specific player controls and has a settlement. Or, and I'm going back to number 1, it can be in a region that is adjacent to their Drakkar and already has an opponent's unit on that specific region, but don't forget that this will trigger a combat immediately. Here, a player is going to take one of his control tokens and he will put it in a specific place on the wheel of actions, in an action that he would like to perform. Now that active player has to put their control token in a place that does not already contain one of his control tokens. Also, we'll be able to choose a specific special action only if that player actually can perform that action. For example, let's say that we already recruited all of our units, so everything is on the map. And just as a reminder, everything here is limited besides the control token. So if we already have all our units over here, we cannot recruit a new one. And in this case, we will not be able to do actually the reinforce special action. So the green player will not be able to place one of his tokens over here. Also, if this is going to be the first control marker that is placed on that specific action slot, all players that have an alliance with a realm that correspond to that specific action will receive the bonus that is marked on the realm token. So for example, let's say that the red player also has an alliance with that specific realm, and the green player decided to do the special action that correspond to that specific realm. Because this is the first control marker that is put on that specific action, both the green and the red player are going to receive the bonus that is written on this specific realm, and that says draw one combat card. We're going to resolve this starting with the player that is left to the active player. That means that the active player will be the last player to take that specific bonus. If in the turn of the red player, he's going to put one of his control markers on that specific action, that means that he's covering the control token of the green player, then the green player will be able to take from the supply one rune of his choice. And then later, if the blue player is going to do the same thing, then it's going to be the red player that will receive one of these runes. The first special action that we can see is reinforce, and that means that the active player recruits one army. So we already remember what does it mean to recruit, and we can move on. The second special action is mobilize, and that means that the active player will activate as many of their armies that they have on the board as they want, but it has to be at least one. So either move the armies, or if you're in a controlled region that has a settlement, you can increase the value of that army. After we moved all the armies that we wanted and increase their values where we could, then we're going to check if we now control any new regions, or if we triggered combat by entering a region that contains the opponent's armies. The next special action is prepare, and here we're going to have 4 options that from them we're going to choose 2. The first one is to heal 1 injury. So we already remember what it means to heal an injury with that hero. We're just going to take one of the attribute tokens and we're going to put it on the healthy side of it. The second option is to draw 1 combat card that we already saw. The third option is to gain 1 chosen rune from the general supply. And the fourth option is to increase the army value by 1, but only if that specific army is in a controlled region that contains a settlement. The fourth special action that we have is to build a temple. We can build a temple if we control a region that has this shrine. So what we will do is just to take this temple, and we're going to put it right over here. Let me put it like this so we can see it a little bit better. And when we're building the temple, in this case it was the red player, we're going to immediately receive one of the priests into our pool. That means that we'll be able to take it and put it on our board. As you can see, I started from this position with the first temple. But little by little, we're going to just have more temples. And at some point, we're going to reveal a number that has a keyword that says draft. That means that we're going to take any number of blessing cards according to the number of players plus 1. In our case, since this is a 3-player game, we're going to take 4 blessing cards. Now that we have all the blessing cards that the active player has drew, he's going to take one of these cards and put it next to his player board. This is something that will now give each player a passive bonus. After the active player has chosen the blessing card, the next player counterclockwise will be the next to choose. So in our case, it was the red player who did it. So the green player is now going to choose one, and then the blue player. These blessing cards are now going to stay with each player until the end of the game. The last card that we did not choose, we're going to put in the discard pile next to the blessings. The next special action that we can do is something that is called Usurp. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I know this word only from Game of Thrones, and since then, every time I see somewhere Usurp, I'm like, oh, Robert Baratheon, that makes sense. So here, first of all, the active player will be able to choose this action only if their hero is in a region without other heroes from different players. So in this case, for example, the green player will not be able to perform the Usurp action. What now we will do is to compare that specific hero's might with the population strength where the hero is right now situated. So as we can see, the might of the green hero Beowulf is right now at 2, and he's situated in a neutral region that has the population strength of 2. If the might of the hero is equal to or higher than that specific population strength, then the action is successful and we'll be able to take control of that region, putting our control marker. If there were armies in that specific region, that army has to withdraw. It is also possible to do this Usurp action if you are in a region that is controlled by another player and you have some of his armies there. So here, for example, we're going to have 2 armies that together they have the army strength of 5. In this case, if the hero of the green player in this example has the might equal to or higher than, that means 5 or 6, let's say that he has 6, and he's doing the Usurp action, then this action is considered to be successful. These 2 units will need to withdraw, and we will change the control in this region from red to green. Also, if you have a region that is controlled by another player and there are no units in this region, then when you will do the Usurp action, doesn't matter how much might you have, you will be automatically granted a control of this region. The next special action that we have is called Monsters, and here we're going to have 3 options. The first one is to activate 1 or 2 different monsters in a chosen order. The active player will be able to choose from a monster that they control or neutral ones. The second option is to hunt a monster that is in the same region as the hero. And the third option is to hunt the boss Loki if he is in the same region as the hero, and also that hero already slain 2 other monsters. When a monster is activated, it will either move or perform a region attack. If the monster is controlled by a specific player, then this player will decide what this monster will do. If they chose in this example to perform the region attack, then they must resolve all the effect, even if it means that they will hurt their own units. If they decided to activate a neutral monster, then the active player will throw these dice that we have right over here, and according to the result, we'll know what to do. In this specific case that we see over here, the active player will decide if to perform a movement or a regional attack. If the active player decided to perform the movement, then the monster will move to an adjacent region. That movement can trigger the stomp. So let's take an example. Let's say with it we have these 2 red armies over here, and the green player decided to activate this monster and move it over here. Again, he can choose because he's controlling this monster. Now, each time a monster is moving to a region with any armies, we're going to decrease the value of one of these armies by 1. If there is more than 1 army, then the player who moved the monster, that means the active player, or the player who's controlling the monster, decides which army decrease their value. If the monster is controlled by a player, then they also may choose not to resolve the stomp when the monster moves. So for example, maybe we would like to move the monster to a different region, and in this case, obviously we don't want to stomp our own army, so we will not do anything. But again, we decided to move to this region, so the green player is going to choose which army is going to drop its value. Neutral monsters stomp every time they enter a region with armies. Obviously nobody controls them, so they're going to stomp whichever army that is situated in the region they just moved to. Obviously, if we have a monster that is controlled by a certain player, a different player will not be able to control this monster. So in our example, the red player will not be able to control this monster right over here. All the decisions that must be made, obviously for the neutral monster, they will be made by the active player. As we saw with the number of components that we have with those rings, each player can control maximum of 2 monsters. If they would like to control another monster beyond the 2 that they already control, they will have to lose control for one of their monsters and just change this base to another monster. When we want to start a hunt, we need our hero to be in the same region as the monster we want to hunt, and then we're going to resolve a certain procedure. So first of all, the person who's going to take the decisions for the monster is going to be the player on the right of the player who's doing the hunt. The first thing that we need to do is to play and resolve all effects that say at the beginning of the hunt. So sometimes you'll have maybe some artifacts or some special abilities. Now is the time. Then the hunting player draws combat cards equal to their might. Right over here we can see that the green player has 2 might, so we're going to draw 2 combat cards. And it's important to add that in this case we can exceed the number of combat cards that usually is being restricted by the hunt. So instead of just 2 combat cards we can have more. Also, the player who's controlling the monster will now take all the monster attack cards, will shuffle them to create a deck, and will draw 2 cards. The hunt is going to start with the monster round. The first thing in the monster round is to check if the monster attack deck is empty. Obviously at the first round it's not going to be relevant, but in later rounds, if the monster attack deck is empty, then the hunt is over immediately, unsuccessfully. When the hunt is being finished unsuccessfully, the hero will take 1 injury. And that means that the hero will choose one of the healthy attributes that he has and will turn it to the other side, to the injured side. Pay attention that we're going to leave this attribute exactly in the same row as before, but we have a new limit and that is 2. So if, for example, now the wisdom is equal to 2 and we have more than 2 runes, then we need to discard 2 runes. That will be the new limit. Then the monster chooses 1 monster attack card from their hand and will play it. The other monster attack card or cards that we have, we can discard. So let's say that we chose this card to play and the other one we're pretty much discarding. Now the hero can play as many cards as he would like in order to defend himself, and if the amount of the values of cards that he played are equal to or higher than the rage value that we can see right over here, then we don't need to resolve the attack effect that we can see right over here. But if he didn't manage to defend himself, we're going to resolve the attack effect that we can have over here. In this case is to have 2 injuries. That means again to take 2 of these attribute tokens and put them on the other side, on the injured side. Sometimes if we're going to defend ourselves unsuccessfully, so let's say in this case for example, we will be directed to the monster's special attack that we can find on that monster's tray. So let's say for the example that the hero played this card of the sword, then we can see that the value is equal to or higher than the rage value of the card the monster played, and that means that he managed to defend himself successfully. The next step is that the hero is going to draw 1 combat card. Now we're going to add the hero wisdom value to the value that we can see on the card, and if the result is equal to or higher than the weak spot value that we can see right over here, then the hero is going to draw an additional combat card. In this case we have 3 plus 3 is 6, which is lower than 8, so the hero is not going to draw another combat card. Another option for the hero to defend himself is to play a shield card, and that means that he's going to ignore the monster's attack effect. But on the other side, if we play this shield card, we will not be able to check for a weak spot and then potentially draw another combat card. Sometimes we will have cards that will not allow us to use the shield, just like this one, for example. The last step in the monster round is that the monster is going to draw as many cards as we can see over here from the monster attack deck. Over here we can see 3 cards, so we're going to discard this one and we're going to draw 3 other cards. And we can discard the combat card that the hero used to defend himself. Now the hero round begins. Here, if the hero can't or doesn't want to deal any wound to the monster, the hunt is immediately going to end unsuccessfully. So again, that means that he's going to take 1 injury. Here, the hero will be able to use as many combat cards as he would like, and every time he's going to use a card with a specific symbol that we can see that is still uncovered on the monster's wound slot right over here, we're going to take one of the hero's control markers and we're going to cover it. In our example, the hero is going to use this card, so we're going to cover this sign right over here. And also when we're covering a wound slot that has a small bonus next to it, we're going to take this bonus immediately. In our case, it's going to be 1 rune. Sometimes we're also going to have a special effect when we're playing a specific combat card. In the bow example, we can see that when you play this card to deal a wound to a monster, draw a combat card and then discard 1 combat card from your hand. If the hero managed to cover all of the wound slots without the immediate bonus under them, he will be able to take the artifact card that is related to this specific monster. Basically, it's enough to cover the last part of it, even if another player already covered other parts of it. So even in this case, because it was the green player who managed to cover the last wound spot without the immediate bonus, it will be the green player that will take the specific artifact card. If a hero has managed to cover the last wound slot of that monster, then the hunt is finished successfully, and then the hero will take the miniature of that specific monster and will put it in his possession. But also, if we have another player that has covered at least 4 wound slots of that monster, he's going to receive a Slayer token that is also going to count towards 1 monster that he has killed. Just as a reminder, in order to start hunting Loki, you need to at least kill 2 other monsters. After a player has played all the combat cards that he wanted and achieved to wound at least 1 time the monster, the hunt is going to continue to the next monster's round. The last special action that we cannot see on the Wheel of Actions is building a monument. Now, a player can choose this special action only if it has at least 1 control marker on any one of the action slots in the action wheel, and then we're going to have a certain sequence. So let's say, for example, that it's the blue player's turn and he would like to do a special action. Obviously, he will not be able to do the build monument because he does not have a control marker on the action wheel. First of all, in order to build one of the monuments, you don't need to control that region. Then you need to choose one of the monuments and add the next level to it. So if, for example, the green player would like to continue and build Odin's monument, he's going to take the next level. Right now it's going to be his legs and a little bit of his body, and he's going to attach it to the base. Obviously, if we have a monument that is already completely built, that means legs, torso, and head, we will not be able to add something to it, so we'll need to choose a different monument. Then we will need to check all the Ragnarok requisite cards and see if something here matches the situation in the board. If, for example, we have already one fully built monument, every time that we have a condition that we actually met with one of these cards, we will need to flip this card to the other side. I'm just going to remind you that if we reach the situation where we have 3 or more cards that are upside down, that is going to trigger the Ragnarok. Then all the players are going to remove all of their priests from all the monuments. Pay attention that these priests are not going to go back to their pool, they're going back to their supply. After that, we'll take all the control markers from the action wheel back to the players themselves, and all the players are going to recharge all their artifacts. So what does it mean? As you saw, we have different artifact cards that we'll be able to achieve either by hunting monsters, or if we control a certain region where we have a specific monument, we're going to take the corresponding artifact card of that god. So for example, if we have a player that is going to control this region, let's say it's going to be the red player, then if he's the first player to do that, he's going to take the artifact card that we have by Odin over here, and is going to be in his possession. But later on, if another player is going to control this region, let's say the blue player, then this artifact card will go to the blue player. Then we're going to refresh all the forges by adding the corresponding runes. So if you remember, we already took a rune from here. What we're going to do is just to take from the supply a new rune and place it on top of the forge. The person who build the monument will gain 1 priest to their pool for each temple in their regions. The last thing that we will do is to draw and resolve an event card that we can see right over here. So let's break it down and see what it says. First of all, we will need to place a monster if it is available. So right over here, we can see this sign that we have with these 2 monsters right over here. And we see that this monster is already in game. So we're going to go to the card that is situated on the second place. So we're going to take this monster and we're going to place it in region number 10 as stated on the card. It's important to say that if we have a card like this and we already have the 2 monsters that are either slain or basically they're already in the game, then we're not going to place a new monster. Then we're going to activate the monsters from left to right. So with the first sign that we can see over here, obviously we don't have a monster to activate because both of these monsters are not on the board. The next sign is the monster that basically we already slain. So we're going to go to the next monster, which is the troll right over here, and we're going to activate it. Right now we see that this troll is being controlled by the green player because we have over here the ring. So it's going to be the green player that will decide if it's going to move or to do a regional attack. Then we're going to activate Loki because we're going to have this boss sign right over here. So we're going to look at Loki's monster tray and we're going to see what is the event activation. So right over here it says draw another event card and place Loki in a region indicated by that card. So basically this card we finished using and we're going to draw a new one. Over here we drew a card with the number 16 on it, and that just means that we're going to take Loki and put it in region number 16. When we're using an artifact card, what we will need to do is first of all find the right moment to resolve it. Sometimes it will be the beginning of the turn, or maybe at the beginning of a combat or a hunt or something like this. And the moment that we used it, we'll just need to tap it. So it means just to turn it 90 degrees and put it next to us. When one of the players will perform the special action of building a monument, we'll be able to refresh this artifact card. A battle is a fight between armies of 2 different players. A battle must be resolved at the end of any step of a turn, in which 2 or more armies of different players are going to be in the same region. If we have more than one battle that is going to be triggered, the active player will decide which battle will start first. So if just for the example, we're having this situation right over here, and the green player decides to do this movement, we're not going to trigger combat yet, and then this movement. So now that's the end of the step, and now combat will be triggered. We're having here 2 different regions. The green player will decide if he wants to start with this combat or this one. Now we're going to have a battle sequence that has 6 steps. The first one is playing combat cards. So starting with the defender, let's say that we have the green player moving his 2 armies over here. So the defender, of course, is the red player and the attacker is the green player. Starting with the defender, each player may play 1 combat card or completely pass. After playing a combat card, the player will immediately resolve the battle effect and place it in front of them. Now, cards with this symbol of casualty can be played only if the total number of casualty symbols played in this battle doesn't exceed the total army value of that player's armies in that region. After all the players have passed, they cannot play any more combat cards during the battle, and the opponent can continue playing as many as they want, of course, if they still have, and it fits the conditions. The value of all the cards that will be placed in front of the player will contribute to the battle value that we will see in the next step. After all the players have passed, we're going to continue to the second step in this sequence. So let's say that the red player has 1 combat card and the green player has 2 combat cards. Starting with the defender, he decides to play one combat card. And here we see that we have archers. So, of course, we're going to completely ignore this part of the card that belongs to the hunt. And we're going to resolve whatever we have over here with a battle. And it says immediately decrease the value of one of your opponent's armies in the battle by 1. Armies may not be killed this way. So now the red player needs to decide from which army he would like to decrease the value by 1. But since this army unit has already a value of 1, it will not be able to decrease from this one. So he doesn't have much choice and he's going to decrease the value of this army from 5 to 4. Pay attention that we have here only one casualty sign, which means that it's totally okay because the total army value of the red player is 6. Now the green player is going to play his card and it's going to be exactly the same one. He decides to decrease the army value of this unit by 1. So from 2 it will go to 1. The red player does not have any more cards, so he has to pass. And that means that the green player will play his second card, which is Berserkers. And it says gain plus to battle view if you're the attacker, which is exactly what he is. So he's going to put it over here. Pay attention that right now he has already 3 of these casualty signs, which is still okay because the total value of the army is right now 5. He does not have any more cards to play, so he's going to pass also. Both of the player passed. We're going to continue to counting the battle value. Each player will now sums up all the values of the combat cards that were played, their total army value of the armies in that specific region, and any other relevant effects like from artifacts, blessing cards, the hero special ability if they're in the region, and so on. So here we see that we have 4 plus 1, that's 5, plus 1, that is 6. And here we see we have 5 plus 1, that's 6, plus 3, it's 9, and plus 2 more because the green is the attacker, that means 11. So obviously the green is the winner. Now the next step is to calculate the casualties of the losing side. First, the player who lost the battle must assign 1 casualty to each army from the region of the battle. And that means that from 1 this will go to 0, and that means that this unit is completely dead. And this unit will be decreased from 4 to 3. Then the losing player decreases the value of their armies by 1 for each casualty symbol on the combat cards that they played. So here we have a 1, that means that from 3 it will go to 2. And in general, a player can feel free to decide how they would like to divide the casualties between the different army units. Obviously, the red player did not have a lot of choice, so this was the result. In some cases, we will see that we have more casualties and then the player can assign, and then, of course, all the armies are being killed and will be removed from the board to the player's pool. And obviously, we will stop assigning damage because we don't have who to assign it anymore. Then the next step will be to withdraw, so the losing side must withdraw all their armies from that region. Then we're going to calculate the casualties for the winner. So he will assign casualties just like we saw before with the combat cards. Over here it's 3. He does not have much choice, so he's going to reduce the army value of this unit from 4 to 1. Then we're going to see if we have a change of control in this region.